Aviwe, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you listened to that interview with the Brigadier. Quite interesting information coming out, and it's clear that in the next few days they're hoping to bring the two, at least, back to South Africa. You've been working a different end of the story. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Certainly, Sally, I've been going back, trying to look at the circumstances around the rather elaborate faked death of Thabo Bester happening on the 3rd of May back in 2022. And of course, I have at my disposal a number of documents that were handed in at Home Affairs, and affidavits from the likes of G4S, also the post-mortem from the forensics. And they all point to one thing, Sally, that the prescripts of the Correctional Services Act were not followed. In fact, the Correctional Services Act dictates that when an inmate passes away, an inquest into the death is supposed to happen that is going to be thorough in its nature. Of course, this is worldwide practice, but it's more important in South Africa, Sally, where, of course, we have that history of, deaths that are undescribable in prisons, of course, given the apartheid era. So it's looked in more thorough, it's supposed to, well, at least in South Africa. But it seems like in this instant, it didn't happen. What's ordinarily supposed to happen is that the SAPS is supposed to lead with investigations. Also, the Forensic Pathology Services also go in there with their own investigations. G4S, as those that run the prison themselves, conduct their own investigations together with Correctional Services. But while they're all conducting those independent investigations, Sally, they're supposed to be checking in with one another, so sort of like taking notes, but ensuring that at the end of it all, they have conclusive findings as to what happened around the death of the inmate and what happens to the body. Is it the person that is said to be the person that died on the scene, and the body, does it go then to the rightful family? But it seems like all of this wasn't done, Sally. I say this because just a day after that, on the 4th of May, the autopsy was released by the Pathology Services, which already indicated two things. One, that the person that died there was not Bester, and that the person, in fact, that was in that cell when that fire was happening was already dead. This is told in two factors. One is that, of course, when it talks of the person not being Bester, the height of it all and the mass of the person were completely different from Bester's. And if you talk of the deaths before that, already there is head injuries that are talked about, and the smokes, the lack of smokes in the lung that are talked about. So a number of issues that were pointed out in that autopsy. But around the same time, Correctional Services releases a statement confirming Bester's death in custody, as well as G4S has their affidavit confirming Bester's death in custody. So that talks already of issues that are contradicting each other and indicating that that inquest was not done. In fact, Correctional Services came back just 2 weeks ago saying that only then had they gotten all the information confirming that, in fact, the person that died there was not Bester, while the autopsy already told us this some 10 months prior on the 4th of May. In fact, Sally, I put together just a package around this, just to maybe better explain some of the findings and the inconsistencies in the documents that we have. Let's take a look at that.
You'll notice that the height of Thabo Bester is around 1.7, whereas that of deceased in the cell is 1.45.
One of the inconsistencies that was overlooked by authorities in declaring rapist and murderer Thabo Bester dead. The charred body in the cell was much shorter than Bester. Another is how the body was released for burial without conclusive evidence in the form of DNA results that it was indeed him who had perished in the Mangaung Correctional Center. One of many glaring inconsistencies, says Tshwane University of Technology professor Jacob Mofokeng.
You cannot release a crime scene, until all the parties that process that particular crime scene are satisfied, and they discuss among themselves that from the collection of the evidence until the results are coming back from the lab that provides with the conclusive evidence that indeed, all the other aspects are covered, such as the physical evidence, fingerprints, and in this case, we can see that, the person was already dead, when the fire was set alight, and also the report indicated that the person died because of a blunt object.
The fact that the body was released so quickly for burial again raises a lot of questions about the fact that other people were involved. There's no doubt that Bester and his accomplices worked with a variety of people, including people from the Department of Correctional Services, empowered to control the prison, including people possibly working with the morgue and other state entities. And there's also reports that there were 3 other bodies that were previously removed from that particular morgue in Bloemfontein. That raises a number of questions. Clearly, these people are cunning, calculated criminals, and they need to be brought to book.
Mofokeng agrees that the inconsistencies are no mistake.
The people who released the body, in that kind of hasty, should have been compromised somehow because of the modus operandi of Thabo Bester, that, whoever come across him, then eventually will be compromised.
Correctional Services says it received the results of the post-mortem in March. That's 10 months after they were concluded by forensics on the 4th of May last year. Aviwe Mtila, Cape Town.